Imagine this. You and your family are traveling through the desert. It's late, and the road stretches endlessly ahead, empty and silent. Suddenly, your car breaks down. You're miles from civilization, no cell service, no help in sight. As night falls, you begin to feel uneasy. And then, you see them, watching from the hills, moving in the shadows. They're not here to help. They're here to hunt. This terrifying scenario is the basis of Wes Craven's The Hills Have Eyes, a cult classic that has haunted audiences for decades. But what if I told you that the horror wasn't just fiction? That deep within history, there are real accounts of something just as sinister, something that inspired the nightmare? Tonight, we're diving into the gruesome true story behind The Hills Have Eyes, the legend of Sawney Bean and his bloodthirsty clan, a tale of isolation, murder, and cannibalism that may have more truth to it than you'd ever want to believe. To understand the horrifying origins of The Hills Have Eyes, we have to go back, way back, to the 16th century. The setting, Scotland, a land of rugged landscapes, deep forests, and remote caves. It was here, in the untamed wilderness, that one of the most terrifying legends in history was born. The story centers around a man named Alexander Sawney Bean. According to historical accounts, Sawney Bean was born into poverty and quickly rejected any kind of honest labor. Instead, he fled to the wild, where he found refuge in a hidden coastal cave along Benane Head. But he wasn't alone for long. He took a woman as his partner. Some say she was just as twisted as he was, and together they formed a nightmarish family. Over the years, their clan grew. Through incest and inbreeding, their numbers reached nearly 50 strong. A secretive society, living entirely off the grid, away from the prying eyes of civilization. And how did they survive, you ask? By hunting. But not animals. No, they hunted humans. For over 2 decades, the Bean clan prowled the countryside, preying on travelers who made the fatal mistake of passing too close to their territory. Their method was simple: ambush, kill, and drag the bodies back to their lair. Inside their hidden cave, the clan would butcher their victims, feasting on their flesh. Some reports even claim they pickled body parts, preserving the meat for later meals. Others suggest they crafted tools and weapons from the bones. The remains of their victims, bones, skulls, decaying limbs, were carelessly discarded, left scattered near the entrance of their cave, or tossed into the sea. For years, travelers disappeared without a trace. The roads became feared. Merchants, soldiers, and even entire families went missing. Rumors spread of a monstrous presence in the hills, but no one could prove it. No one who encountered them ever lived to tell the tale. So how did they get caught? As with many horror stories, their downfall came from one small mistake. One night, the clan attacked a man and his wife traveling home from a fair. The ambush was brutal. His wife was torn from the horse, slaughtered before his eyes. But the husband? He fought back. He drew his sword and slashed at the attackers, managing to escape before they could overwhelm him. He ran until he reached the nearest village, covered in blood, raving about the horrors he had just witnessed. His story spread fast, reaching the ears of King James I himself. Enraged by the tale of these so-called savages, the king assembled a hunting party, an army of 400 men, who scoured the countryside for the elusive killers. And finally, they found the cave. What they uncovered inside was worse than anything they had imagined. The stench of rotting flesh filled the air. Bones and dismembered body parts littered the cavern. Human skulls were stacked like trophies. And deep within the tunnels, they found the clan, half-starved, filthy, and unrepentant. The Beans were captured and taken to trial, though no trial was actually held. Their crimes were considered so horrific that they were immediately sentenced to death. The men were executed first, tortured, dismembered, and left to bleed out. The women and children burned alive. It's said that none of them ever showed remorse. As they died, they laughed, proud of their monstrous legacy. But here's where things get complicated. Did Sawney Bean's clan really exist? Despite the gruesome details of the story, There are no official records from the time of King James I mentioning this massacre. No trial documents, no concrete proof. Some historians believe the entire tale was nothing more than folklore, possibly created as political propaganda to demonize Scottish outlaws. Others argue that the story has some truth, but was exaggerated over time. Still, whether real or myth, the legend endured for centuries. And centuries later, it would inspire one of the most infamous horror movies ever made. Fast forward to the 1970s. Wes Craven, the man who would later give us A Nightmare on Elm Street and Scream, was looking for his next horror project. He stumbled upon the legend of Sawney Bean and was captivated by its sheer brutality. But instead of setting his film in medieval Scotland, Craven wanted something modern, something that would feel real to American audiences. So he moved the story to the Nevada desert, a place just as isolated, just as dangerous. In The Hills Have Eyes, the Bean Clan became a group of savage, mutated cannibals, the result of nuclear testing in the 1950s. Stranded travelers became their prey, and what followed was a horrifying fight for survival. The movie shocked audiences with its raw violence and unsettling realism, and the scariest part? It was all rooted in something that, whether real or not, had haunted human imagination for centuries. Many people dismiss the idea of hidden, cannibalistic clans in today's world. But strange disappearances in remote areas have led some to speculate otherwise. Every year, thousands of people vanish in national parks and rural areas, never to be seen again. While most cases can be explained by accidents or animal attacks, some vanish without a trace. No footprints, no remains, nothing. Conspiracy theories suggest that feral human communities may still exist, living deep in the wilderness, much like the Bean Clan. While there's no hard evidence, the fear lingers, and the legend grows. Could The Hills Have Eyes be more than just a horror movie? Could something like this really happen? Or maybe it already has. What do you think? Was the Sawney Bean legend real, or just a terrifying myth? And could hidden clans still exist today? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you love uncovering the terrifying true stories behind horror films, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Until next time, stay safe, stay alert, and don't stray too far off the beaten path.